So PTO shaft. As I may well have already said, don't put woodruff keys in that yet. Okay, I would start by putting some grease on this shaft at the end because it's got to go through the bearing. Greasing that, greasing up the woodruff key slot a little later, but at the moment just make sure you've got plenty on there. Great tip from Jordan from Loveline. Pretty sure I get confused between what I've heard from Jordan and what I've heard from SB Renos and Loveline. But both of them are awesome. Both of them have given me heaps of tips. So we put this guy in. Oh no, that's the tip I was about to tell you about. Now that I've greased that up, I just got a little bit distracted because my other camera decided to die, run out of batteries. That's okay. So we want to put this on so that the gasket part is facing the chains and your convex part is facing the engine. So put this part on first. That's a good little tip because that saves you going all the way down the shaft from the other end. I like tips like that. Good work. Okay. Hectic Mozzie plague at the moment. Got him. Alright, so that's on there now. That's on there. That's all we're going to put on at the moment. On the other end we're going to be putting our sacrificial washer and also our nice new brass thrust pad, and this has to be with the hole for the oil pointing upwards. So I'll just start by putting them back there and carefully feeding that through the bearing, and all going well, this is going to go in nicely for me. Okay. Might put a bit of grease in the bearing as well. Let's see if that's any easier. Degrease myself. Okay. And I think, quite frankly, a good tip here would be to stick this in before you actually put this pin in and your lever in, because that way you can lay this piece down and it's not in your way. It's sort of in my way at the moment. It isn't and isn't. It's not really, but you know, you never know if you're going to hit a bit of paint or whatever else, and it is a little bit of a pain. You can pull it out of the way like this, of course, but not quite the same. Alright, and that goes in nicely like that, very nicely. That's all the way up. Okay, so let's take these back off for a moment and carefully get that up into position. Okay. Okay. So, looking at that, I would say it would be smart to take the tiniest little bit of paint off that, or grease just inside of this. I reckon that's the best bet. So we are going to have a bit more luck. What was happening there? It was sticking on the paint, and now it's actually moving back and forth on that paint, which it wasn't doing before. So that's worked well. So push that all the way up as far as you can push that up. and then push up your seal, which seals that very nicely. Okay, and then we want to put our woodruff key inside of that. This woodruff key in the back on the other side of the frame is the smaller of the two woodruff keys, so there's not a lot of difference in the two, but if you put them like that, you can see there's actually a fair amount of difference. So we want the smaller key now, and I'm going to get a little bit of grease, and I'm going to put a bit of grease into the woodruff keyhole. Now don't be shy about this, I've realised, as I put one in, couldn't get the bugger out, and I reckon that's because I didn't quite put enough in. Well, I eventually got it out, but boy oh boy, what a nightmare. And that was a new woodruff key that had just been put in. So I'm not looking forward to taking the woodruff keys out of my everyday runner now that over winter I'm going to turn into a groomer. That's going to be lots of fun. But anyway, I've got that all the way in there. I've got my smaller of the two woodruff keys, and I'm just going to try and move this over here a bit. Alright, is that good? Yes it is. Okay, so stick him in. It's a tight one too, guys. Real tight one. Okay. Just gonna grab me a smaller little hammer. Okay, got my smaller little hammer. And now I'm gonna get the light and a dookie. So this guy, I've got a plate here. We're definitely in as far as we can go. And normally you can get at them on a bit of an angle, which is, as long as you can get a start anywhere on a woodruff key, you can always straighten them up once they're in there. Getting that starts, boy oh boy, in this particular amount of space, gotta tell you, it's not easy. Now, I'm going to pause this. You're going to hear too much swearing otherwise. Alright, so back to this guy here. I've chucked a little bit of tape on the top here because I was hitting it with a hammer. I'm going to be hitting it with a hammer again. I have hit the edge, so it may well have done the paint, I don't know, but at least I've got some tape there in between. Now this woodruff key, I'm going to be honest, it's not oversized because I put a set of verniers on it, and the gap and it are pretty much identical, so there's not even a tenth of a mil to play. It's just so tight. So it also seems to be high. I had a test play of trying to put this sprocket on, and it was just going to be too hard to try and get that on as it was. As been pointed out on other videos, this tiny top of here is such a thin, so thin there, you don't want to be forcing this and breaking that. So anyway, I went out and I took the tiniest bit off the top and the tiniest bit off the side of the woodruff key, and let's just see how that fits. Making sure you line up your key with the woodruff key. Now this wouldn't go anywhere near it before. That's half the problem. Nothing's supporting this guy while you're trying to push this guy into it. So a lot of this stuff I haven't been able to see on videos. So a lot of this I'm doing freehand, and you guys are getting to see it straight up. Okay, I'm going to try and hit that woodruff key a little better than that. Okay, obviously you want to be somewhat gentle and careful when you're using hammer around your fresh paint and around all these parts. Alright, let's try that again. Now he's got grease in him. There's grease around the shaft. I've just got to make sure we line that up perfectly. I'm going to get the rubber mallet and give that a little bit of a tap. A little up tap. Again, you're fighting against, I can see as that's being pushed in there, that's wanting to push down that woodruff key back here. I just wonder, alright, I'm going to keep having a play with this area, and when I come back I'll explain my workings. So herein lies the problem. I'm going to try and get you in close here. Every time I try and push that up, the woodruff key decides it's going to pop up on an angle. Now if I can get that in there well enough, yeah, that's probably close. So it's telling me that the woodruff key is not going in deep enough. So I'm going to continue to play. Alrighty, so I believe I've been somewhat successful. Basically, let's take this tape off, see what damage we've done. Tiniest little ding, I'll fix that up in post-production. Alright, so yeah, that's literally not going to go in any further than that. That there. Now, the bummer part about that was that it's the first time in the whole build that I've had to succumb to getting help. The reason being is because when you're trying to hit this on with you can get it in so far with your piece of wood, no problem. Then when you get to the end of the shaft there, you need a socket. So I stuck a socket in there over that flat part there, put the socket on there, started hitting it. Every time you hit it, the whole shaft, PTO shaft, wants to pop out that way because there's nothing securing it in. So what I had to do was get my son in here, get him to hold a block of wood at the end of it, and get a nice, really nice heavy grip on that, push against that, and then I was able to tap this guy in. Now it was a little bit hard. He's what, 15 years old, so he's strong, but yeah, he had that pushed in with every little bit of his strength, and I was hitting this with quite a bit of strength as well to get him in. So yeah, that's in there. It's turning nicely. So next thing you know, next thing you do is we chuck on a flat washer. Make sure we put some lithium anti-seize on it. Alright. Just like that. Stick our washer on. Our bolt. Stick our bolt on. This is interesting. Might be just a little bit scored because of the hitting it with a hammer. So I'm going to have to use a little bit of a persuasive action. Make sure that's as aligned as humanly possible. Get a spanner and get that guy on. Alright. Let's just make sure we're starting that off nice and straight. Obviously I've just scored the end of this. Let's see if I can clean off any burrs. Obvious burrs. Just clean up that lithium grease a bit. Make sure we've still got plenty on there. Alright, let's try that again. Okay, so got this bolt here and get him started. Alright, just going to go back a thread and make sure. I really don't want to strip this PTO shaft thread. Looks good. Let's try and do this without wrecking him. Alright, I'm going to get this on and get back to you. Okay, so the verdict is that's all the way on. Happy with that. Clutch is working as it should. Happy with that. Sprocket's all the way back in. I'll check the alignment. That looks nice. This bolt, however, is giving me a little bit of grief. I've got it on further than what it was on. I actually swapped it with another bolt from the real sprocket because they're the same, and that bolt that wasn't going on there went on the real sprocket fine, so I brought that bolt up into here and it seems to be going on a little bit easier, but when I say a little bit, it's not going on any further, so I'm gonna have to wait till I've got the chains on, and that will allow me then to do that up a little bit better when I can lock it off against other parts. So that is the PTO shaft completely installed, and the sprockets for all the chain gears.